Guys, welcome back to today's video. Today's video is going to be all about my February reading and writing wrap-ups. So let's just dive right in. Alright guys, so the first book I want to show you is Mine to Take by Cynthia Eden. This book, excuse me, this book is one that I had to give a bad review on. And I hate giving bad reviews. I do. I hate it because to me, all books are different. They may not be my cup of tea, but they may be somebody else's. So when I have to give a bad review on a book, it kills me to do it because I know that somebody out there probably does like the book. But I had to give a bad review for this book because I am honest in my reviews. And I did not like this book. I did not like how fast-paced it was. It literally was like the book was going 100 miles an hour all the time. It was one thing after another, and there was no time as a reader to digest anything. It was just as I came to terms with something happening, something else happened that changed the trajectory of the story. Then it was something else happened, and then suddenly the book ended. And in my eyes, I read it as the book wasn't even edited, that it was written and just put out there to be read by people, and it wasn't edited. It wasn't anything. Like, it was just like it read to me like a first draft. And I tried to give this book an honest, fair chance. I tried, I read it, I finished it, I did that. But giving this book a bad review, it killed me. And so in my eyes, I do not recommend Mine to Take by Cynthia Eden. But if you do want to read it, just read it at your own risk. The book I want to show you is House on the Beach by Linda Barrett. This book is one that I've read multiple times, and this book I love. I love the story behind it. I love how each of the characters are dealing with their own things. The main male character is a, father, a single father who's living with his own father while running a business with his dad and trying to raise two boys. One of them has a stutter, who's being bullied. And then enter in the woman who is coming in after the death of her mother from illness. And she's also healing from an illness herself. And she gets the house on the beach as a last-ditch effort to do whatever she wants, like to grow and heal and to work because she's a voice actor. And she is struggling through that and scares of being sick and falling in love with this man, even though she really doesn't want to. And the book is just good. I could go on and on about this book. I could give you all the spoilers about this book, but I don't want to. House on the Beach by Linda Barrett is one that the first time I read it, I immediately wanted to read it again, even though I just finished it. And it's very rare for me to do that because I always want to read a new book after I finish one book. So for me to finish a book and want to immediately start reading it again, it's amazing. House on the Beach is just one that I highly recommend. I suggest you go out and you read it and you just give yourself your own opinion on it. But House on the Beach by Linda Barrett, I feel, is a very good book. Okay, so the next book I want to show you is From the Start by Cheryl Etchison. It's about a battalion surgeon coming back from, a deployment who had to work on some people and they died. It's about a woman who ended a relationship with a military man and swore off all military men. And in this, they meet each other. They're kind of set up. He is asked by the main female's sister to kind of keep her company at this bachelorette party. And, they start talking. They decide on a no strings attached relationship. Things happen. It's so good. I could talk about this book forever, but From the Start is the first of a series of 3, I believe. And this book, I just fall in love with the characters over and over again. I fall in love with Michael over and over again, with Casey over and over again. I just fall in love with them as their own characters, but as well as when they're with each other. So I really highly recommend From the Start. If you're really into military romance or you just want a sweet feel-good romance, this is one. So the next book I want to show you is Disaster at Roosevelt Ranch by Elise Faber. And this book has quite a few things that I like when I'm looking for a book to read. A lot of times I steer towards cowboy romances And this is kind of sort of one of them. But I also love reading books about unexpected pregnancies or pregnancies in relation in anything, because I'm a mom, so I've dealt with pregnancies, and so I like reading those things. And this book had both of those: a surprise pregnancy, a miraculous twin brother who shows up and wants to take care of the mother of his brother's child. Lots of drama, lots of things happening, just so much going on. And I cried, you guys. There were a few parts in this book where I cried. Things that, you don't really think about happening in real life, that could happen in real life, happen. And I cried. Like, I cried, I want to say at least 4 times in this book. And I don't know how else to describe this book. This book was just so good, so touching. It drew me in from the start, especially because the pregnancy started right away. It just, there were some funny moments, some very crazy moments, some heartbreaking moments. Just Disaster at Roosevelt Ranch. I highly recommend this book. I couldn't begin to tell you everything that I love about this book, because the list just grows every time I read it or think about it. So I suggest you go out and you get Disaster at Roosevelt Ranch by Elise Faber. The book I want to show you is Inappropriate by Vi Keeland. And this book reads as a romantic comedy, at least to me, at some parts of it, and I love this book. I'm going to try to do this without giving too many spoilers away. The main character of Inappropriate gets fired for some inappropriate behavior that happened while on a vacation. And somehow the company found out about it and she got fired. And so, in her drunken state, she writes a really nasty email to the vice president or something, CEO or something of the company. And he, responds back. She immediately feels guilty. And, they bump into each other. They start a secret romance and just love blossoms. Things happen. Just so much drama-filled stuff happens, but so many funny things happen as well. Inappropriate is one book that when I read the description on Amazon before I bought this book, I couldn't imagine not reading it. Like, I just had to purchase it. I had to get it out. I had to get the words out of my mind. I had to just read it. I had to get it done. And it just was nagging at me until the day it came in. And once it came in, I sat down and I started reading and I couldn't stop. So I really recommend Inappropriate because, it's a really good read. And I just love all the characters and everything in it. So I highly recommend Inappropriate by Vi Keeland. The book I want to talk to you about is Hating the Boss by Kristen Granada. This book is the first ever book I've read of Kristen Granada, and I love it. It's a romantic comedy, which is something that I've never really read before, at least nothing strictly in that genre, and because I'm more for feel-good romances. But I decided, after following her for a long time, I decided I wanted to read it. So Hating the Boss is one that is funny. Like, there's so many laugh out loud moments, and there's one in particular I told my husband about. When I talked about this book to people, I told everybody this one funny part, but I'm going to leave it out of this video because that's a big spoiler. But basically, the two main characters sleep together. One of them ends up being the other one's new boss, unexpectedly anyway. He accuses her of stealing something from him that's a family heirloom, and a prank war ensues. Lots of funny things happen. There's so many laugh out loud moments. I had my kids looking at me weird. If my husband would have been home and I would have laughed out loud while reading this book, he would have looked at me like I was insane, because I've never read a book that made me laugh out loud. And Hating the Boss just hit it on the nail. Like, it hit it good, and it hit it right, I guess. Like, the book is just good. So I really recommend Hating the Boss by Kristen Granada. What I want to talk to you about is the sequel to Hating the Boss. It's Back to You by Kristen Granada. This book is also a romantic comedy, and some of the things in it, they're not the exact same characters. They're two different characters that are kind of sort of mentioned in the first book. You hear them mentioned a couple of times, but it's totally different. You can read each one as a standalone, but I really think you should read the first one first, so you kind of know what happens. But Back to You is just really heartfelt. The two main characters were in a relationship previously. One of them moves away for an unexpected reason without really giving any warning. And then years and years later, they are met again when they meet at the same school, and a bunch of stuff ensues. You know, there's drama, there's crying, there's laugh out loud moments, just so many fun things. The only thing that I have to say is that Back to You happens at the exact same time as Hating the Boss. Or maybe not the exact same time, but some of it happens at the exact same time. And that's kind of confusing. But most of this book, other than it happens at the same time as the events in the first book, this book is really, really good. I love this book. I mean, out of both books, I honestly have to say I love Back to You more. Not because I hate anything with Hating the Boss, just because this book is just much more heartfelt. These characters knew each other before everything happened, before he left, before things changed. They knew each other, and I just like that second chance romance feel. So Back to You is a really good book, and I suggest you read both of these books. What I want to show you is Just Neighbors by Charity Farrell, and I have to say this book is one for me to reread over and over again. Just Neighbors is literally just that. It's about neighbors, but it's a enemies to lovers book, which I enjoy. Enemies to lovers, they knew each other for a long time. And she hates him because of something he did back in high school. And he wants to make amends to her, and she doesn't want anything to do with him. She doesn't want anything to do with it because she's dealing with family issues. And so there's just all of this angst, all of this animosity, all of this just suspense and buildup of what really happened and then you learn and you're like, oh my God, that really happened. And, you know, you just kind of feel, I don't know, like my emotions were all over the place. And then the fact that there are children involved. And so not directly, but kind of directly they're involved. I can't give it all away, but, you know, knowing that there's children involved and just kind of knowing that some of the things that happen to these kids aren't necessarily what happened to me, but I can kind of sort of relate to some of them. So I just really love this book. There were quite a few times where I sat there just bawling my eyes out, and I don't know, like my heart broke for those times that my heart just wanted to cry over things. I love this book. It's one that I could talk about forever, and so I highly recommend Just Neighbors. The book I want to show you is Revelry by Candy Steiner. Candy Steiner is an author that I've read plenty of times before. I love her books, but Revelry is one that she talked about on Instagram a couple of times, and she showed like some inspiration that she had for Revelry, and I fell in love with the book just hearing her talk about it, just because she was so passionate about this book. And every time I went to buy the book, I talked myself out of it because I was just like, I don't know if I'm going to like it. I did not want to buy it and find out that I didn't like it. That's not something I wanted to do. So eventually it just popped up on Amazon. I just looked at Candy Steiner and it was like the first book that popped up for me. And I was like, you know what? It keeps popping in my head. I keep seeing it. I keep, you know, thinking about it. So I'm going to purchase it and I'm going to read it. And I'm glad I read it. I finished it this morning, and I can't say enough about Revelry. Rin and Anderson, their characters grow so much. They're both dealing with their own versions of depression. They're both dealing with their own versions of guilt. They're both dealing with so much, you know, baggage that they're dealing with. And to watch them grow individually as well as together, the book is so good. There were times where I had tears in my eyes. There were times where I cried over things. And just their backstories, Rin's backstory, Anderson's backstory is so just, it brings you in because you want to know each one of their backstories and you want to see them grow and you want to see them come to the end and you want to see how it ends. And it's amazing. Revelry, I stopped my writing, my work in progress yesterday to read this book. I had to do a reading vlog, which will be up. I don't know if it's going to be before this video or after this video. So I just had to read this book, and it came, and I was just like, I fought myself and I fought myself, and I ended up giving in, and I'm glad I did. Revelry, I really, really recommend you reading this book, because not only is it romantic, but it's also uplifting, because I can relate to both of these characters in different ways. And seeing them grow, seeing them fight through it, shows me that I can fight through anything. And it's giving me something that can push me forward. So I highly recommend Revelry by Candy Steiner. All of my books in February. I never expected to read 9 in February. I honestly just thought I was going to be focusing more on writing than I was reading. And so to read 9 books in February, that's amazing to me. I kind of outdid myself a little bit. Like, I was just thinking I was going to read like 1 book a week, so that I expected like 4 books. But to get to 9, that is amazing. And every single one of those books but one are books that I just love, and I connected with, and I connected with the characters, and I took something from each one of those books. So I'm so happy to show you guys the books that I read in February. So now let's get into talking about writing and where I'm at with my writing. I'll talk to you guys about writing real quick. I think I started like 2 or 3 different projects in February, like writing wise. My initial goal was to write 5 days a week and take 2 days off. That just didn't work. Eventually, 5 days a week writing was just too much for me when I didn't have any kind of plan. If I took a break from a book that I didn't have any plan on, and I like stopped all thoughts of the book while I was taking 2 days off, I guess it was just like my brain telling me, nope, if you're going to push the thoughts out, we're not going to give it to you. It was like that. Like, the books just stopped coming to me. The ideas stopped coming to me. So I stopped writing for a while. And then I watched a few authortube videos, and a few of them were talking about Save the Cat and how the Save the Cat beats helped them. So that brings me to the now. So I downloaded this PDF, and it was just like a list of the beats of what each of them kind of stood for, and like a little graph at the top, or like line graph at the top, that showed me where each beat should be and kind of all of that. And then at the back of it, after the 2 pages of that, were pages and pages of different books and where each of the beats were in each of the books. So, or what they would be in the books. So I downloaded that to kind of give me a head start looking into it, to even try it before I bought the book. Well, I ended up buying the book, and I'm super glad I did. I have been writing Project Kiss with these beats. I am about to start writing beat 8, and I am loving the beats. The beats are what's keeping me on track, because I know where I'm headed. I know what the plan is. And if I know I'm going to need to take a couple days off of writing, or if I just get into the middle of the week and I just don't want to write anymore, I try to force myself to write until I can get to a spot where I can stop writing, and to a point where I know where my plan is already written down, and go from there. Because I'm using these beats, I made 3 different spreadsheets, which I've talked about in a couple of other videos. One where I actually have the beats, like, you know, mapped out kind of, where each one is highlighted in the color according to the PDF that I downloaded. And I'm dating it, as well as marking if it's done. And then I'm also off to the side putting what chapter each beat takes place in, or starts in at least. That way I know kind of when I go back into editing where I need to focus on these beats to make sure they're actually what I need them to be. And then my second spreadsheet is my word counts for each act. Because Save the Cat beat breaks up your story into 3 acts. So each act has its own columns, and there's dates that the chapter is written, the chapters column, which is also highlighted to match the act, and then how many words are in it. And then I'm also just putting a little B next to it, so I know that it's a beat chapter, or the start of a beat, or whatever, so that I can kind of know, again, where I am with the beats and everything. And so after all of that, I'm also adding up all of the word counts for each chapter, just so that I can have a running total of how many words are in each act before I start editing. And then the last one is my chapter map, which is changing every time I do my writing. And it's just basically mapping out where each beat is going to take place. So what chapter each beat is going to start in, and then the chapters that are basically detail chapters. Chapters that kind of need to happen before the next beat can happen, kind of. And it's ever changing. So I'm using those to kind of help me get there. And I just love that this Save the Cat method is giving me all these different opportunities to kind of track my writing and everything like that. I'll give you a full review on the Save the Cat beats until I finish my novel. I am about halfway through. I'm sitting at like 29,000 words right now. I think I'm really close to 30,000 words, if I'm not mistaken. So 30,000 words is a lot to be just about halfway through with my novel. And I think I'm about to start chapter 21, or maybe even 20. I think it's chapter 20 out of 33. So, I'm right about halfway there, maybe even a little over. And like I said, chapters are being added in, chapters are being taken out. My chapter map is ever changing every time I write because ideas pop up and I need more chapters, or I didn't really plan things out really well. And so I am loving that. This is the beats tracker that I was telling you about. Here are the dates, and then each act is a different color. I have a key right here that tells you which act is which color. And then the Y's mean that it's finished. And then these are just the chapters that the beats are starting in or taking place in. And this helps me so that I can kind of keep track of where the chapters are and just know where I am. And the Y just tells me that I did finish it, because otherwise I wouldn't know. And so this is just kind of my spreadsheet that kind of helps me get through each beat and see where I am and keep me on track. This is my word count tracker. And I have each column here is for each act. I have the key sitting right over there. But this first act is done. It's completely done. So I totaled up all of the stuff. There are the B's that I told you about so that I could keep track of what beats are happening. And this is Act 2, which is where I currently am. And this is just keeping me, sane and on track. I'm dating everything. I'm giving each chapter a number. I'm doing the word counts. I know these are really small chapters, and I will work on those in editing, but this is just a fast draft. So this is what it looks like. Act 3 will be over here, and those will be green once I get to Act 3. But I'm not done with Act 2 yet, so we'll get there. This is my chapter map that I was telling you about. So each beat has its color and each column. And then everything in red are the chapters that I've written. Everything in black needs to be written. And then the chapter numbers that are right next to the highlighted boxes are the chapters where the beats are going to start or take place. And then the chapters that are off to the side that have no color next to them, those are what I'm calling my detail chapters or fill-in chapters or whatever I want to call them. And these are where they change. Originally, I had beat 7 taking place with 2 chapters afterwards before beat 8, and I ended up over the weekend adding in 3 extra chapters and then taking one away, and so it's ever changing. And so here's that. I have my key over here. Red is written, green is edited, which I haven't started editing anything, and black is to be written. And then there are the chapter color keys, and this is what it looks like overall. I just find that this helps me so much more when I need to look at things. So this is that. Guys, that is it for my reading and writing wrap up for February. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this. I enjoyed working on all of these things, reading all these books and working on this writing and giving you guys all this information. Don't forget to follow me on my Bookstagram account, which will be linked in the description below, for you guys to follow in real time as I finish books and give you guys reviews, as well as subscribe and like this video, and comment below what your reading and writing goals were and if you have any questions. I will talk to you guys in my next video. Bye.